Welcome to the Restored Living Podcast. We're your hosts, Josh and Jaelyn Harrell.
We are a husband and wife who are passionate about partnering with people to rebuild, restore, and renew their lives to the purpose God has for them.
In 2018, God took our broken marriage and restored it to something beautiful, and we believe He wants to restore the parts of your life that seem broken too.
Join with us as we talk openly about what it looks like to walk out restoration in Jesus and what it means to let the cracks in our story become the greatest evidence of God's love for us.
This is Restored Living.
I did that at the wrong time.
You did at the wrong time. That's okay. No one knows.
Was doing the Finding Nemo.
You know the thing where they're like, Mount One Hakalugi. Guys, most of our life, honestly, 97% of our life is us quoting children's movies or just movies in general. I feel like we could probably have a full conversation. We are.
Movie fans.
We love it.
If you are, put it in the... There's no comment.
There's not. You're too used to the years of Facebook Lives where you say, put it in the comments.
Movie fan.
We feel you.
We love you.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll do more of our movie. What's your favorite genre? Michaela and I were talking about this. My friend Michaela and I were talking about this week. Like, what is
I still love superhero movies. Hands down.
Action?
No, specifically superhero movies.
No, genre.
I feel like that is a genre. And I'll go to bat for that. I think that superhero movies are a genre of their own. I don't know. I think they
agree. We should do a poll on Instagram.
We'll do a poll and see if you agree. I think superhero movies are their own genre. I don't think they used to be. I think back when it was like there was a Batman movie every 10 years. No.
Okay, so we'll do a poll on Restored Living the week this comes out.
Yes.
And you can see it on our grid.
I want to see. Yeah, I want to hear what the favorite genres are.
Do superhero movies have their own genre?
I think so. What's your favorite genre?
I think in my previous life.
You would have said rom-coms.
Yes, 100%. See, he knows me.
I do. America's Sweethearts was one of, I still love that movie.
I love that movie. It's a good movie.
Julia Roberts.
They just don't make movies like they used to make them anymore.
No, Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? No.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah.
Yep. Not Renee Zellweger.
No, I always mix their names up. Anyway.
Josh doesn't really know. He's not a real movie buff like me.
Excuse me.
Just kidding.
Absolutely. Rude. Those are fighting words. Anyway.
I would say comedy now. A comedy and sci-fi. I'm like in between both of those.
The one genre you will never catch her wearing, never catch her watching is horror.
Horror, never. So I just can't do it.
I agree.
There's some people that really enjoy that. I just cannot.
No.
For multiple reasons, I cannot. Same thing with I love a good rom-com, but I feel like rom-coms aren't what they used to be anymore. So there's that.
They're not. They're less common, more rom.
Anyway. Now that you've heard our banter, welcome to the Restored Living Podcast. I'm Jaelyn Harrell.
I'm Josh. Also Harrell. We are married. It's a fact. Going on 12 years, baby.
We're just single and doing.
We're just doing a podcast together. It's fine.
And all the things.
Jeff locked that down in 2012.
Oh, you locked that down, did you?
Well, I didn't say who locked it down. Just someone did. Someone locked up something.
I wouldn't be sad if you locked it down. Let's just say that.
In 2012, yes. And so...
we're coming up on 12 years.
I know. That's wild.
I feel like that's a special one.
It is.
Even though it's not like a 10, 12 is a big deal.
It's a lot of years.
It's been a lot of good years.
There have been a lot of good years.
And I feel like we were just talking about this the other day, how... your mom was asking about what snacks we like.
Oh, yeah.
And
don't ask. We're doing a late Christmas. She wanted to know for stockings and things.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I like these flavors. I don't know if I have like a favorite snack necessarily, but I like these flavors like dark chocolate, coconut.
Those little
I like cinnamon flavors.
Chips from Trader Joe's.
Those things.
But it's funny because then I went to write mine and I couldn't think of anything. And so I just said same as Jay. Because truth is we do have, it's not that we're not our own people. We have our things that we like and don't like, but there are a lot of things that we both love.
Yeah.
Or, as you grow with someone, you just kind of like adapt some of the things that they like or enjoy. And so it was just funny.
Just makes it
one
easier.
of the little ways. It does.
It's easier to buy both snacks at Costco when you both like the same thing.
It's true. It does.
I would say.
Oh,
well, welcome to the Restored Living Podcast.
We're 4 minutes in and we've said nothing and everything at the same time.
You guys know we've said
It's
everything.
like an episode of Seinfeld, our life, really.
But what time is it?
It's housekeeping time.
Josh loves to do the housekeeping.
Both literally and figuratively. But the
Do you
housekeeping for this
enjoy
week.
it, or do you just tolerate it?
Which one?
Actual housekeeping.
Oh, like cleaning the house. No, I actually enjoy it when I have the time for it. I enjoy it. Like you were saying, the desk is messy, and I was like, oh, I want to clean the desk. That sounds really fun.
You can clean the desk after we're done podcasting.
I will do it. But housekeeping for the podcast, which I also enjoy, is what we're going to talk about right now. So first things first, very exciting. We announced it last time we were on here, but our website is officially up and running.
It's
amazing. I did put something in our stories about it this last week. Jay did all the work on it, so she gets 100% of the credit.
I like design.
You do like design. She's very artistic. And so she designed the website for us, but we're super excited because it's going to be just a nice little hub for you guys to find everything that you need. There's a couple different things. I'm going to run through them really quick. There's a page for contacting and connecting with us, specifically because we have had people ask us about coaching. They've asked us about, they just want ways to like get in contact and run questions by us or things like that. And so we just figured that's a nice, easy way to do that. And on the topic, we do offer coaching, which we haven't talked about a ton in the past. But Jay and I have in different facets coached individuals and couples for the last 9 years or so. It started with kind of physical health coaching and then morphed over time into a lot more of just life coaching.
Now working it's more on trauma-informed coaching.
Which is something that we are in the process of getting some certification in as well. We're like mid-process and getting certified. And so if that's something that you have questions about, even if you're just like, what is that? I don't know. That sounds like something that maybe could be helpful for me or for my spouse and I. Excuse me.
We're also both 6. So
yes,
if you like my sultry voice and Josh's, if you hear sniffling, we don't edit our podcast.
No, we don't.
Because it's all raw.
Because we don't have time.
Authentic.
There's no time for that. But if you have questions about what those coaching services could look like for you as a couple, things like that, then just reach out on there. It's just a contact form. It has some questions, some general things that you can answer so that we just know what you're looking for as we go into a conversation with you. And so that is on there. There's going to be a whole page dedicated to the blog, which will be coming in February. So just in a couple weeks. We'll have that, and our plan is to have weekly postings on that initially. Most of them will be from Jay and I initially, but we do have some friends that we're really excited who are going to be contributing to that as well. So just keep an eye on that. If you're somebody who likes to read, that might be a really good resource for you. You know, some people will learn better through conversation like this, and some people learn better through.
You guys, on the note of the blog, there's just sometimes so much meat that social media doesn't allow us to share. Because captions can only be X long. So we will put more detailed tools in those blogs as well.
Yeah. And a lot of times the social media stuff will kind of, it'll correlate with that. So if you see something on like Instagram, for example, that you're like, man, I want to go deeper on that, there's a good chance that will eventually end up on the blog as well. So
the resources for a deeper there. Dive.
It is. It's for the deeper dive. And then there's also a page for giving on there. And this is something that we thought a long time about before we even put it out there. But, you know, all the stuff that we do with the podcast, from equipment to time to editing to all the various subscriptions you need for all those platforms that you use, just comes out of our own resources. And that's because we love doing this and we enjoy getting to just share the things that God has given us out of his generosity into our lives, whether that's learning from people around us or just through the things that he's walked us through. And so we're going to continue doing that no matter what. But we do have that option there for you to give. And we actually have had some people do that already. So we just want to say thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
So incredibly generous of you. Because right now, all that money is just going to sit while we ask the Lord where he wants us to steward it first. But that is going to go towards things like costs to keep the podcast up and running, different equipment like these things that we buy that we need for it, certifications so that we can serve you guys better. So investing in getting more educated and certified in different areas so that we can really have the tools to best assist you and serve you. None of that will ever just go towards like our Starbucks. So we
are drinking Black Rock today.
This was actually
courtesy of a gift card.
Gift card that we got. But we want you guys to know every bit of that money that comes in is going to go back into the ministry to serve you guys in whatever way we can in whatever way the Lord's asking us to. So that's all on the website. It's just www. I realize I didn't say this yet. www.restoredliving.org.
We'll put it in the show notes too. In the description on YouTube.
Yeah.
Speaking of YouTube,
go
like and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah.
We put the video version of this podcast out on YouTube and on Spotify, and it helps so much for the podcast to be able to be seen and get into the right hands. And right now, most of our followers are from Instagram, actually. And I know many of you are lurking out there. I am so guilty of this too. I am a non-subscriber in YouTube world. Like she
watches a lot of things.
Religiously watch things, and I am starting to be better about because subscribing doesn't cost you anything.
No,
it literally just I like this.
Yeah,
this is
I enjoy
what
it. Show me more of it. Yeah.
So if you could do that, that would be super helpful. We love when you guys interact on there too. We're excited to get the YouTube up and running a little bit more with some more content, even outside of the podcast. Right now, it's mostly just the podcast, but
we'll have more on there as well. So,
and then as always, share, follow,
send us questions you have. You know, a lot of times it's great to hear from you guys on what you're wrestling through and what you're navigating, so that we can either one, be praying with you, two, if we have resources to be able to point you in the direction of them. I had a couple this week who they're going through, you know, a similar situation to what we walked through in our marriage, but they're in very, very early stages of recovery, and they were just like, we just need prayer. We just need to. There's not a lot of people to talk to about this stuff. And so to be able to pray with them and guide them to some resources that the Lord is really using in some powerful ways in their lives to restore trust, to help them understand their stories better. And that's the kind of stuff that we love to be able to do. And we're best able to do that when we hear from you, and when we're able to just lift you up in prayer and to guide you to those tools. So I think that's everything, right? For housekeeping stuff. I think it is.
The floor clean?
The floor is clean. So now let's begin.
We may enter. Okay.
So this topic, we've been doing kind of a culture series for several weeks now, since last year, but
since last year, it makes it seem so long.
A month ago, 6 weeks ago. But we were talking today, and one of the topics that we've been thinking about talking about is parenting. And you'll hear us talk about parenting in other episodes too. In fact, the episode we just did with Tara Matson over at Living Wholehearted had a lot to do with parenting and technology. And if you didn't see that, we posted about it on our Instagram as well, so you can go listen to that. But this one, we really wanted to talk about the concept of not just parenting our own kids within culture, but also what it looks like for us to kind of turn inward and give some parenting to ourselves, like our little selves, our little kids. Yes. You'll hear it called inner child work a lot. You'll hear it called maybe a multitude of things. Internal family systems is an approach to that as well. But we have found this to be very
life-changing,
really life-changing and powerful in our own journeys in stepping into that role of how do we look at the little kid in us that is hurt, that is wounded, that has been, that's just been hurt in some way. And because that often is what's spilling out into our parenting of our own children now.
Well, yeah. And, you know, as we start off on this foot, I want you to know, you know, like if you don't feel like a stellar parent right now,
welcome to the club.
I don't think any of us are perfect at parenting, and we're all going to screw our kids up. And that can be something that feels really daunting. But I do believe that if we partner with the Lord in what he's going to do in and through us, we do have the strength to build strong relational bonds with our kids. And that can really give them a leg up with whatever they're going to face, because they're going to face things. I mean, you know what you faced as a kid and growing up and the things that have shaped you. Yeah. And so, you know, I feel like our family is our first mission field in a lot of ways. It's the first place we lead before our work, before anything else. And I feel like that's been a little bit lost. So we're really going to dive into this topic of parenting and what it is and how it works in the kingdom in a restored way, and how you can practically have some really simple parenting tools to be able to start even repairing some of your relationships with your kids. Like if you feel super frustrated when your kids are fighting all the time and you just feel like you're fighting with your kids all the time, that is not normal. That's not normal. And I think we've gotten to the place where that is normal.
Yeah,
that's just the way
yeah.
kids are.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that our families were meant to have discord that just sits and poisons.
Yeah.
And I believe that God, Jesus, Holy Spirit can come into that poisonous place and can set freedom alive.
Yeah.
And the marriages that we see and the mom and son relationships that we see, mom and daughter relationships that we see, there's so much power in that. So we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah,
it's
we are.
Great.
I'm excited for it. So I think it's important for us to start off just recognizing that when we, as parents, like and we tell this to our oldest son a lot, but like when you become a parent, there are things that you are completely unaware of about yourself that are going to be exposed in your parenting.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that parenting exposes a lot about you, more about you than it does about your kid, right? Because you're learning about your kid as they grow, but it's exposing all of these areas in your own heart that you might not even, maybe you haven't even been aware of through your marriage, because I think marriage does that too.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about parenting and walking a human being through all the different stages of development and of life that is really awesome and really taxing all at the same time.
Isn't that the truth?
And a lot of times as we are walking our kids through these different stages of development and they're growing and they're developing their own thoughts and personalities and opinions and all of that, we can start to encounter things in our parenting with them that we're suddenly like, why does this thing bother me so much about this kid that I'm raising? Why does this thing always seem to be a rub or a conflict? When they do this, why do I go from 0 to 100 so quickly? But I don't, that doesn't happen with other people. And I think a lot of that is because we are seeing reflected in our own kids, areas that for ourselves growing up were maybe challenging, or we're seeing, it's triggering something not in our adult self, not in our 30-something-year-old self or our 20-something-year-old self or whatever, but it's triggering something in like that little 5-year-old self or that 6-year-old or that teenager or that preteen in us. And a lot of times because we're just in the throes of parenting, it's tiring at times. You're probably, maybe working or whatever on top of that too. We don't necessarily always know to take the time to stop and think about why that thing is frustrating so much and go a little bit deeper. We just kind of react and respond out of habit because we're just trying to correct a behavior of our child, or we're trying to do the parenting thing and be the example, when in reality, there's something within us that is being like poked at that needs to be addressed if we want to actually have the healthiest relationship possible with our kids, and if we want to really raise them well.
Yeah. And I think, it's important to establish what kind of parent do you want to be? Do you want to be a parent that raises good behaviored kids? Or do you want to be a parent that raises well-equipped kids? There's a big difference between a good behaviored kid and a well-equipped kid.
Yeah.
And what I mean by good behaviored is they sit down, they shut up, like they know when to do the things that they need to do. They know when to say sorry. From the outside looking in, they're good.
Yeah. They have all the behaviors.
They have all the behaviors down, and we can nail that into them, like be quiet when I tell you to be quiet. And it's a very one-sided relationship with good behaviored kids. I feel like it's very, I'm the parent and I say what goes. And I'll just be honest. This was how I started parenting in my parenting journey. When I was 22, y'all. We were 22.
We're barely legal adults.
Barely. And we wanted,
much less parents.
We were so passionate about having a family and having kids.
Yeah, we very intentionally had kids early. It wasn't like a surprise. We wanted to be parents, just like we wanted to be married early too.
And some of you are, you're our age, you're in your 30s, and you're just starting to have kids. So this stuff is going to set you free in a lot of ways, because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And it wasn't because I was just 22. It was just because I've never done it before.
Yeah.
And so there is a difference between good behavior kids and then good, well-equipped kids.
Yeah.
And the well-equipped kids are the kids that we're sending them off.
Yeah.
Right. We're equipping them to go out and be adults.
Yep.
And to do the things that they are going to do in this world, because they will do things in this world. They're not
Yeah.
going to be a kid forever. You have them for 18 years. And by golly, I'm shocked at how quick it goes.
I know.
Like Landon's already 9 and
halfway through the time he's going to live with us at most.
And the second half, I feel like will go by way quicker than the first.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Even with, like, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but there's been so many moments this week even where I see Landon's, I see how well equipped he is. And it's not because of the things I said to him.
It's actually probably, well, go ahead.
Well, I feel like it's, we've been very intentional about being the example.
Yeah.
And that is where well-equipped kids are grown.
Yeah.
Is when you lead, how you lead, right? You are always leading your kids, but your kids cannot go somewhere you have not been.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I found, and might be a good thing for us to talk about initially, but like high emotions and anger towards your kids, like really quick anger. So for myself, one of my biggest and hardest places in parenting, especially with Landon, because he is my child.
Yeah, like he
is my mirror child.
Yeah.
And you all will have one kid, if you have multiple kids, that is the kid that gets to you.
Yeah.
And they are you as a kid. They just mimic the things that you did. And Landon is that for me. And so, as he was growing up, I love him to pieces. But I would get so frustrated with him. And then he would get frustrated back at me. And it was just like this war that we were having in our relationship. And I remember just one day feeling like, God, why is this happening? Like, why can't I control my kid? And that is really where you have the fork in the road of good behavior and good, well-equipped.
Yeah.
Is when you ask that question, why can't I control my kid? And you get to decide, am I going to keep trying to control my kid? And they will listen to you eventually because...
Yeah, you can beat kids into submission.
Or they won't. And they'll just rebel and you'll be like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to better understand and maybe even look inward a little bit more. Yeah. And I finally started asking the question, how do I lead my kids well? How do I don't want to be angry with them anymore. Like I want to love them and I want to, I want our relationship to be peaceful. And I kind of wondered if it could ever be that way.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
And I want to hear your thoughts on this too, as far as like what that was like observing that. Cause you're so not like quick to get angry. And I was so quick to get angry.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty about it all the time. And I remember going into, I would read books, I would do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember going into therapy for a totally unrelated reason.
Not about kids. Yeah.
It was actually, it was about Caden.
But, yes. Yeah.
But going into therapy, knowing I would need therapy with this surprise pregnancy and all of this stuff. And as my therapist and I just worked together over that year that I was pregnant, it wasn't that she was teaching me parenting things, but she tended to me, just me. And this was probably the first time in our, 5-year therapy journey so far where I had really tended to myself.
Right.
Because I think when you first confessed your infidelity and all of that, I was just like, let's fix our marriage. Let's do, and I did some work on myself because you kind of, when you're initially in that spot, you're a victim, but you're also like, there's stuff for me to own in this. Right. And as I started to just work on me, something I had never let myself do, you guys. I was a survivor my whole life. I was Miss Independent. I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask people for help. And I used to wear those things as a badge of honor when actually they were just really hurting places in myself.
Yeah.
That I would get angry with my son because I was hurting. I was stressed. there was so much that I was going through. So I took it out on him essentially to make myself feel better. And we don't know that we're doing that at first. But if you see the signs that like you're really quick to get angry and things get heated really quick, or even your kids are lashing out in, I won't say violent, but like aggressive ways, they're kicking, they're biting, instead of being like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my kid? Maybe even just asking the question, I wonder what's underneath that. That's a powerful question. Because we weren't designed to just be angry at the drop of a hat, and that's our only response to life.
Yeah.
But throughout that process, what I learned was it was actually 3-year-old Jaelyn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was just scared and angry that no one was helping her. And so there was that, that 3-year-old me was driving the car.
Right.
When conflict arose and when hard things happened. And it's okay for her to be in the car, but she can be in the back seat.
Yeah.
And I can be an adult and I can drive my car.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think, you asked what it was like observing that. And I think that, this last couple of years, in counseling, both of us were introduced more to this work of what a lot of people will call inner child work or internal family systems. There's a lot of different ways to approach it, but essentially the concept behind it is that growing up, all of us have needs that go unmet. Some of them don't rise to the level of like maybe the title, quote unquote, of trauma or things like that, but we have needs. Like no parent is perfect, so we're all left lacking something growing up. And for a lot of us, those things we learn to compensate for them in the moment, in whether it's more 5 or 10 or a teenager or whatever it is, we learn how to cope with them in the moment in a way that makes sense for our own just emotional survival, our well-being. And then the problem though is that as we get older, they become very maladaptive ways of dealing with these things. And that's where it starts to, then we have kids and we're unaware of these things. And so then as we're raising our kids and helping them navigate through life, just like we were when we were little, it starts to tap into these things and we start responding, reacting. And sometimes that can be anger that comes out of the drop of a hat. Sometimes it can look like completely secluding yourself from being a parent. And that was more the case for me because I have a more passive personality where I would, in the really, thick depths of anxiety and depression, things like that, I just would withdraw, whether into my phone or just by myself. I would withdraw and I wasn't present in parenting. And that was my maladaptive way of coping too. And so when we got introduced to this work that essentially aims at going back in your story, which we talk a lot about the power of your story and going back into it and inviting the Lord into those moments of pain once we see them. But it took us going back into our story and really walking through it like season by season of our life with our counselors and them being able to help us see areas of our childhood that tied directly into why we do the things we do now or why we were doing the things that we were doing now as parents. And so, for us, I think like a lot of parents, we just thought, well, this is just like a problem to be fixed, right? So like for you, I know with your anger, a lot of times, which I can attest to the fact that like she's grown so much in this area. I see such a patience in you now that is so encouraging because I know you've fought for it. Like you've fought hard to be a patient mom. And I really believe that you are, because we're raising 3 boys. That takes patience, y'all.
It does.
Especially
when they're in the back seat and touching each other.
But
or their blankets
yeah.
touching. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about.
She, it was a lot of like I would see the remorse and just the sorrow after these kind of head-to-head moments she would have specifically with our oldest. but just of just feeling like such a terrible mom. And I remember being like, you know, as a spouse, you're kind of like, I don't know what to do to help. But I knew like this wasn't, that just wasn't her personality. And it only came out really in these moments where there was just like something was being poked at. And so, what was really powerful is to learn this tool of going back and understanding our stories and seeing moments where our little self was wounded or abandoned or hurt or forgotten or just like just moments of pain in our stories that when they happen and we're unaware of them and we're not really able to deal with it and the residual of that, it becomes this thing that just spills out and naturally with our kids. And so what we always thought was like behavior to correct. Again, we talk about like roots and fruits a lot. That is a fruit. When you're seeing a lot of discord in your relationship with your kids, that's a fruit. That's not a root issue. The issue isn't the discord with your kids. That's the thing you can see. But the issue, there has to be something precipitating that. And I want to be really, really clear on this too, because I don't know if we said this yet, but there is absolutely zero shame for wherever you're at with your parenting right now. If you are in a place where your parenting is so difficult, you don't even enjoy being a parent right now, you feel shame over not enjoying it because in your heart you want to, but in reality you just don't.
Yeah.
If you're going to bed every night crying because you just want things to be better in your home, you just want that relationship with your kiddo repaired, you just want to have one day go by without like major conflict or a blow up.
Yeah.
There is no shame on you for any of that. And I think we heap enough shame on ourselves that we don't want you hearing any of it here. The Lord does not shame you for that because he knows that we're imperfect people. And I think that's why he so desires healing for us in our own stories, because he knows the ripple effect that's going to have on our kids. And so rather than shaming yourself for where things are at right now, I want to encourage you to step back a little bit, look at your parenting, your relationship with your kids, and instead ask the Lord, like, what are you wanting to redeem here? What are we not seeing here? Like, what am I not seeing about myself? What am I not understanding about my kid? Take that posture of shame and frustration towards yourself or towards your kiddo and reposition that and move into a place of curiosity. Because I think when we are not curious, there is no openness to possibility at all. And so I think we can think this is just how parenting is always going to be. It's always going to be hard. It's always going to be exhausting. It's always going to be filled with conflict and this tumultuous kind of environment. But when we get curious and ask ourselves like, okay, what could be happening inside of me that's contributing to this? And what's happening in the heart of my kiddo that's contributing to this? It just opens you up to a position of, rather than being like, this isn't working, and I'm so frustrated, this isn't working, which is all true, but being able to open your hands and be like, Lord, this isn't working. It's saying the same thing, but your posture is different. And I think we changed our posture a lot with our parenting in the last couple of years to, instead of being like, this is so frustrating, I'm so angry about this. And this is by no means that we're perfect. We still fall into that. But we go like, what? Like, Lord, this is frustrating and I don't know what to do about it. And I want to understand. And for us, a big part of that understanding process was this dealing with the little kid in our hearts that was hurting, that needed help.
I think, what you said about fruit and roots, some of us do need to really identify what is a root thing and what is a fruit thing. You are not your behavior and your kids are not their behavior. And I know we don't have teens yet, but
we're getting dang close though.
But I think about when I was a teen. And I had fruit that was not good behavior. I would sneak out of my house. I wouldn't let my parents in, even if they wanted to, there was a lot of fruit there that was a warning sign. And I want you to see the fruit as not as a, oh God, my kid is terrible. They're not terrible.
Yeah.
That's a root thing.
It's just, the fruit is just an indicator. It's like it's like a symbol on your
They're hurting,
dashboard
right?
of like there's something going on.
Mm-hmm. Like, Landon has had some, sleeping issues and different things like that. That is fruit.
Yeah.
That's fruit of things that we might not understand, like the move away from Oregon to Arizona. That's going to affect, I was affected by a move from just like half an hour away.
Yeah.
Leaving all my friends, proximity, there's so many things that we might see as small or our brains might see as small that actually were big for us.
Yeah.
And so, that's where looking at the fruit and getting curious about the fruit, like, what does this fruit mean? Does this fruit mean something?
Yeah.
And exploring it with, exploring it with a therapist, but also letting God into your journey with that too.
Yeah.
Asking him, like Josh said, God, show me, Holy Spirit, show me, how can I make this better with my kids? How can I, how am I feeling about this? Right. Even just connecting like your mind and your body is a huge step forward as a parent, naming, like you might not always be angry, but it's coming out as anger. Right.
And it's getting underneath those things. It's slowing down enough to get underneath those things and ask what's really going on. And again, the reason that we're talking about parenting, but we're mostly talking about you as a parent is because it all starts with us as parents. Like our parenting is not about our kids. Our parenting with our kids is about us. And it's about like our parenting will only look as healthy or as good as we are. And so if we are in this place of if we're unaware of our emotions, if we're dysregulated and disconnected from our bodies, if we're disconnected from our own stories, if we are running in fight or flight mode all the time, if those things are true, there is nothing that we do with our parenting that will make things better. There just isn't, that will be long lasting. We will either make really well-behaved kids whose hearts have not been tended to because because our hearts have not been tended to, or we will have kids that rebel because there's such a tumultuous environment that there's no safety for anyone or anything. And so this intentionality of starting with ourselves and understanding our stories and understanding the areas where we have had lack and inviting, this is the important part of it, inviting the Lord into those places so that he can redeem them. I was praying for this couple earlier this week, and we have been in conversation about what they were walking through. And the phrase the Lord kept bringing to mind was reveal and redeem. And I just feel like that is something that we as parents, if we can humble ourselves and ask the Lord to reveal the things in us that need to be redeemed, reveal what's happened in our own stories that is leading us to parent in this way. What's happened in our stories that's led us to behave and act out in this way. And then redeem those things. Like, don't just show me, but then actually do something with it, right? Because there's one step is understanding and being aware. But then if you do nothing with that, it's almost worse than not being aware of it. Because at least when you're unaware. But when you know and you do nothing with it, and you don't invite the Lord in to do anything with it, then it's kind of like, well, now you're like responsible to this thing that you're aware of, but you're doing nothing about it,
Well, and there's not freedom in that, right?
No.
Like, the reason we're passionate about restored living, you guys, is because it's possible. I do remember, 3 years into our restored living journey of sorts, I was seeing fruit that we weren't really living restored all the way. And I kind of felt like an imposter a little bit. And you might feel that with your parenting. Like, I'm telling my kid to, calm down, and I'm not calm.
Right.
That's normal. It can feel like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And those incongruencies are being brought up for a reason, right? That is the Holy Spirit. What's the word? It starts with a C. Convicting. There we go. Words. That's the Holy Spirit convicting you of something gently, right? Gently bringing something to the surface.
Yeah.
that you have the choice, like Josh said,
Yeah.
to deal with.
Yeah.
Not, and you can push it under the rug and sweep it there and leave it there, but I find those hurts, those hangups, they are like infections.
Yeah.
The things that we've been through, the hurts that we've been through, and there's, you know, like I always say this about, you know, the different hurts that we've been through. When you go into therapy, you feel the hurt because you're poking it.
Yeah.
Something's poking at it, right?
Yeah.
Like a wound. Like,
well, it's like being reopened again.
Yeah, like
for a
with
lot
the,
of us.
what's the word for it? See, I don't have words today. You know, when you get a splinter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you don't really know that some is still in there, but
Yeah.
like a little bit stayed in there.
And it just grows and grows.
And then eventually you're like, why is my hand red? I don't understand. That's where I had that splinter.
I didn't get it all out.
Didn't get it all out. And a lot of times with that splinter, it is more painful to go back in.
Yeah.
Dig it out.
Yeah.
Pull it out. Then you got to clean it because there's infection in there and there's a process. But that process produces, and we've talked about the scar tissue.
Yeah.
And scar tissue is the strongest tissue that
It's
you can
tough.
have.
Yeah.
And usually when you have a scar, you cannot re-scar things.
Right.
Pretty typically.
You also can't get rid of it. You know, it's this thing where it's like, it's there. It's never going away. It's evidence of both the injury and of the healing process.
But what I will say is, you know, as you're thinking about your parenting and maybe some of this is resonating with you and you're like, I don't want to do this, Jaelyn. I don't want to go back into my story. You know, I can't remember anything earlier than 7.
That means something.
That's a flag.
Yeah.
And it's not oh no.
No.
Life is going to be terrible from this moment on. The enemy would like you to believe that.
Yeah.
But what I have seen is as I have been willing to go through the process of identifying the infection, pulling out what shouldn't be there anymore, cleaning, and letting it heal with time, that we really do.
Yeah.
We experience true healing.
Yeah.
And it's lasting.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes the things you do yourself, the rebuilding. We talk about this in Restored Living all the time, the rebuilding, and then the restoring that God's going to do.
Yeah.
And only He can bring truth into those scenarios that your brain has maybe misinterpreted or told itself its own story to make it all okay.
Yeah.
And I will say the most powerful parenting tool that you will have is understanding your story better.
Yeah.
So that you can help your kids understand their story as it's being written.
Yeah. Yeah. And the key to all of this is that you can do all of those steps on your own. Like you can, because a lot of these things we're talking about, these aren't just like things that you hear about in the Christian world. You'll hear about all inner child work and all that in the secular world too, because psychology would agree that this all works, right? But it's an incomplete picture if we walk through all these steps on our own. We go back in our story, we reparent ourselves, we tell ourselves truths. Those things are all good, but the difference between that and Jesus being a key part of that equation is that the truth is not just coming from you in those moments. So when you invite Jesus into your story and you ask him to come in and to reveal and to redeem the moments that were broken, the moments where the enemy entered into your story and said, I'm going to take your innocence here. I'm going to take your voice here. I'm going to take your joy here. Yeah. I'm going to instill anger here. I'm going to instill insecurity here.
Fear.
All those different things. Nothing can combat the lies of the enemy but the truth of the Lord. So no matter how many truths you tell yourself that come from you, they will not ultimately be strong enough to defeat the lies the enemy has instilled. That is something the Lord and only the Lord can do. And so when we invite him into that process, yes, we are participants in our own healing because we have to choose to go to those places. And it is hard and it is scary and you will hurt more at times. Like you will hurt more because you're facing the reality of your own brokenness, and that's painful to do.
Yeah.
We've sat in circles with men and women going through our stories, and just the immense pain that comes out in those moments is very real.
Yeah.
And we've experienced it ourselves when we've watched others experience it. And what we've also experienced is there's a key moment of transition in the story when that pain is revealed, and then Jesus enters into the pain with that person, and the redemption that happens, where suddenly the story has an entirely different lens to it.
Mm.
We're able to see it from a truer perspective rather than just the pain. And so then those scars truly do become scars that we can point to and say, yeah, that thing really hurt me and God really healed me.
Mm.
And that is powerful in our own parenting, because our kids are growing up in a world where they will experience pain and loss, sometimes at our hand. Sometimes we will be the ones who hurt them. And that is hard to accept. But if we have invited Jesus into our story, and we have allowed him to do his healing work, and we have participated in that, we will have the ability to hold space for our kids' pain, even if it's hurt that we've caused, and they will feel safe enough to bring their pain to us.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we can equip our kids in such a way that we can help them process their hurt and their grief and the loss of this life in real time, we can't help them. We can't make them avoid it. Like, we can't shield them from everything. But if we can create a place within our homes where there is safety for those things to be processed in the moment, what that avoids is the 40-year-old who becomes addicted to drugs or alcohol or pornography or gambling or sex or whatever, because their 8-year-old self was not tended to.
Yeah.
So we can't avoid the current pain, but what we can avoid is that becoming this embedded, deep-rooted trauma in their life that now 30 years down the road, it's coming out sideways because they don't know how to process what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the long game of parenting.
Yeah.
Like, right now, the days may feel hard, but this is the long game of saying, like, we're raising men and women. We're not raising boys and girls.
Right.
And so are we going to do the hard work to work on ourselves, to understand our story, to step into that redemption process with the Lord, so that we can raise kids who, regardless of the things they go through, they have that firm foundation of knowing that, one, the Lord loves them and is never leaving them.
Yep.
And two, their parents love them and are never going to leave their side, and they are always going to be a safe place for them.
Yeah. So let's talk about, as we wrap up the podcast here, because we're eking on the ending point of our podcast, as we do so quickly all the time. Let's talk about some practical tools that we've seen people who have raised kids / seen work in our own parenting that we can impart on the parents listening to this that do want to have well-equipped kids.
Yep.
And I would say the first one,
go for it,
is do your own work. Lead from the front.
Yeah.
Parents, if you're not doing your own work, if you're not dealing with your own childhood, if you're not, please do that.
Yeah.
Do that. That is the biggest thing that you can do to improve your parenting.
Yeah.
Is to take care of yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
No.
And so, I have seen this time and time again over the last almost decade now, that when I focus on pouring into me, I am able to pour better out to my kids.
Yeah.
And so take care of yourself. For you stay-at-home moms, work out, eat well. Don't make everything about your family and your kids. When your kids are at school, take care of yourself. You need to take a nap, take a freaking nap. Do those things. Do your quiet time every day. Those things are essentials for you to be your best.
Yeah.
And as a mom, you really are, you need to be able to be lubricated to function well.
Yep.
So,
yep. And so making sure
maybe as a dad, what would be your encouragement from that side of things?
Well, I think and I'm speaking to the kind of social norm that most of the time dads are working outside the home. So I'll speak to that particular audience. But
if you're a stay-at-home dad, you can take my advice.
Also,
take care of yourself.
I think all of this ultimately applies to both parents. But if you're a dad that's working outside the home, I get it. I work outside the home. I'm exhausted when I get home. I'm gone 12 hours a day when I work. I am beat. I'm tired. You are too. That's understandable. I don't think there's any, you don't need to make excuses as to why you are. You just are. That's understandable. What that does not give us permission as dads to do is to just check out when we get home, because two things. One, our wives are also exhausted and they've been on all day long too. And we are partners in parenting. You're not helping your wife out when you go home and do stuff with your kids or make dinner or whatever. You're not helping your wife. It's just as much your responsibility as it is hers. You guys are partners. So it's the important thing. If you're trying to figure out, like, maybe you're really absent when you get home with your kids, or you get really frustrated with them because you just want time for yourself or whatever, that is not their fault or responsibility to make sure you're taken care of. That is your job. And so making time for yourself to make sure that you have what you need so that you can, it's the same thing as moms,
advice,
but it is
a different lens. I feel like
it is a different lens. So whether that is, maybe you have a commute home and you need to intentionally make that time for yourself. So maybe it means, you check in with your wife, you let her know, hey, I'm heading home. You chat for a couple minutes and say, I'm going to take the car ride to decompress from work because I want to be fully present to be with you and the kids when I get home. Yeah. And so maybe that for you is a time where you connect with the Lord. Maybe that's a time that you just spend in quiet, which can feel really awkward, but maybe you just need to spend some time in quiet so you can process your thoughts. Maybe for you, it looks like taking time in the morning, and doing that before you get your workday started. But I think there is a sense of, we have got to make sure that, like, our basic needs are taken care of so that we can then, pour into our families. And if your workday is taking everything out of you and you're left with nothing when you get home, that's something you've got to deal with. That's something you have to face and address. Like, okay, how is, with my current situation, can I make this different? Can I improve this? Can I somehow make sure that I do have energy when I get home for my family, because they do matter most. So I think that's important. Yeah. Just to make sure, even as working parents, that we're making time for taking care of ourselves, so that we're not, because sometimes that might be the biggest thing for you, right? But if you're doing those things and you're still finding that you're on the edge with your kids, there's constant conflict between you, or you're disconnected, then I think it's time to take a step further and go, okay, what else could be going on? Because maybe it's not a simple self-care thing at this point, and like soul care thing. There's like stuff that I haven't figured out or addressed yet. And I think that's where it can be helpful to say, maybe my next step in my parenting is to get into some counseling for myself, because I feel like I'm doing all the things and it's not working. Right. Or I do take care of myself and I try to be the best parent, and it just feels frustrating and I don't know what's going on. And if you're noticing you're hitting the same walls over and over again, that's a really good sign that there's something there. Yeah. If you're seeing that every time with your kid, it's the same kind of conflict over and over again, or over the same topics, or there's just like a cyclical pattern to it. Any kind of cyclical thing that you're in, there's a reason. There's addiction, something at the center of the cycle, whatever it is. Yep. Yeah. And so I think counseling is a really good tool for that. And I know for us was. So I think practically, it's going to, again, these all point to starting with yourself, like we've said countless times now.
Okay. What are some things that we can do with our kids?
So one of the questions that our boys are kind of getting to the age now where we're ready to start asking them, but that several mentors of ours who, both therapists, just good friends that are parents who have really healthy relationships with their kids, have asked or encouraged us to ask our kids, is sitting them down and just asking them the question, what's it like to have me as a parent? And there has to be a certain level of like, just development before that's like a question that's going to be helpful, right? Because a 5-year-old is going to answer that very differently than a 15-year-old. I feel like, I think you got to gauge it when you're a kid, but 7 to 10, somewhere in there, depending on your kiddo. Boys and girls could be a little different, but just even prefacing it with sitting down and just saying, like, like if I were going to sit down and say this to Landon, I'd say, hey buddy,
our 9-year-old, by the way.
Yeah, our 9-year-old. I would sit down and say, hey buddy, I just wanted to take some time. And one, I want to tell you that I love you. And I'm really grateful that I get to be your dad. I try to tell them that a lot, but then to ask him, I know that I'm not a perfect parent, and I know that I messed up. And so I want to just know the truth from you. Like, what is it like to have me as a dad? Good and bad. All the things you love, all the things you don't love. And
I'm not going to get mad at you for what
this is not, I just want to know in trouble for anything.
What you think.
Yeah. Because I know that I know that I might not see it all. And so I want to continue to become a better parent for you. make this about them. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to tell them how important they are and show them that you can handle their praises and their criticisms, and
Mhm.
that you will receive those open-handed.
Now, if you are a boy mom, using the word think, not feel.
Yeah.
Women tend to respond better to the word feel. Men respond better to the word think. It's a neurological thing. So with my boys, I'm constantly like,
What do you
I
think?
go to feel first. Like, how do you feel about that? And then I have to backtrack and be like, wait, what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I find when I ask them how they feel, they don't know.
But you ask them what they think.
Ask them what they think. They know what that means to them. And so opposite for parenting daughters. How does that make you feel? Because women do have the feeling they're more concerned with their emotions than they are maybe with their cerebral thinking. And so just that word verbiage use can be really helpful in helping them navigate this kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
And you might not get very far at first, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But just being in tune in the different stages of your parenting to what are my kids, what do they think of me? And they'll be honest.
Yeah.
They're going to be honest.
And you need to commit on the front end to them and to yourself that this is not going to be a pity party about
you don't need
the
to
negative
fix any
things.
of it.
That it's not in the moment you trying to justify yourself or why you do certain things. If they say, I don't like when you X, Y, and Z, you just receive it.
I don't like when you yell at me, Mom.
Yeah. Well, if you would just not, disobey so often, blah, blah, that's not the point of this. That's not helpful for you or for them or for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's taking that. And I think what's important and would be helpful is to let your kiddo know once they share those things with me, thank you so much for being honest with me.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Reminding them again that you love them after they've shared all these things with you. Right. So think about that, how powerful it is for a kid to be able to, one, hear that you love them, two, tell you how they feel about you as a parent, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then three, to hear you say again that you love them. Right. It teaches them that what you say to me does not change that I love you, even if it's hard for me to hear. And it's not that you can't show your humanity and be honest. If it makes you sad, some of the things they share, because you feel sad about the fact that they feel unseen by you or they feel like you yell at them a lot. It's okay to be sad about, show, if you have remorse, show it. It's good for your kids to see. And in this moment, what you can do is you can apologize, I think. And just if they say something, I don't like when you yell at me.
Well, and this kind of gets into what I would say would be a third thing that you can do to strengthen your parenting, which is repair.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Always repair. You can repair for past things and you can repair present things.
Yeah.
So what we mean by repair, in this scenario, you're talking to Landon and Landon is like, I don't like when you yell at me, Dad. That's not the issue here, but that's the example we're going with.
Right.
Josh can say, I love you, buddy. Thank you for sharing that with me. What I'm hearing you say is you don't like when I yell at you. And we're mirroring back to make sure that we understood what they said.
Yeah.
That you don't like when Dad yells at you and that makes you scared.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, yeah, that's what I said. And it's good to understand that because sometimes I think we can see things through a different filter of, well, my kids said they don't like when I yell at them and it makes them scared. Therefore, I'm a scary person.
Not what they're saying.
Therefore, I'm a terrible person. I'm this. If it's an identity statement that you're hanging on to, hear what they're saying. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then you need to go process that on your own. This is making me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm taking this on, I'm making my kids scared.
Yeah.
And I'm a scary person. Why do I think that? Get curious again, know. But in the repair, you can say, buddy, I'm so sorry that I made you feel that way. That was never my intention. And I really want to work to be better at that. I had many conversations with Landon where I was like, Mommy, I would blow up at him and he'd go to his room. And, you kind of sit there as a parent and you're like, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
I should not have done that.
Yeah.
And in those moments, it would be so easy for my pride to get in the way and just go about what I was doing and just kind of forget about it.
Or justify the behavior.
Or justify. Because like eventually it'll all go back to normal, right?
Yeah.
And it was in those moments, even though it was hard, I went to his room. I sat on his level, even like lower than him sometimes. And I just said, hey, buddy, can I talk to you? And I would say, I love you. I should not have done that thing that I did. And I owned my stuff. Yes, there's stuff that he needed to own too, but that's not what repair is about. Repair is about your personal things that you own.
And we're teaching them first.
Right.
Like we're modeling to them, even in all these different things. The important thing we're showing them is we're showing them what emotional health and safety looks like in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So even back to all the way to the mirroring back what they said to us, we're teaching them in that moment how to actually hear something and then to like mirror that back to someone. And when we do repair like this, we should never expect, even if there is apology that needs to happen on both ends, we should never be expecting our child to be the first one to say sorry.
Yeah.
Ever.
It speaks big volumes to them.
In a conflict with them, I should clarify. In a conflict where we have had a conflict with our child,
yes,
we own our stuff first. We show them the way. If it's them going up and punching someone, yes, they should apologize. That kid has nothing to apologize for. But in our own interactions with them, we go first as parents.
Right. And it's that foundational relationship. When you model repair and you say, hey, buddy, I was super, and take the time to investigate before you repair things. Don't just go say sorry. Sit in the kitchen after you've yelled at your kid and think, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Why did I yell at my kid?
Yeah.
Was that necessary? Like, and it was in those times where I would think, okay, where is it at in my body? What am I feel? And a lot of times I'll feel it on my back because I feel like there's this burden that I have to do all of the things and carry all of the things. So this is why working on yourself is important, because you're able to really name things in the moment.
Yeah.
So your own personal work really matters here.
Yep.
But, able to name, I did not take care of myself the way I needed to today. And I let a lot of things slide. And now I'm out of my window of tolerance because I'm tired and I'm cranky. And that came out at Landon. And so, I would go in his room and I'd be like, buddy, I love you. I'm so sorry that I yelled at you.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't justify why. That is not, I should not speak to you that way.
Yeah.
That is not okay for people to speak to you that way.
Yeah.
It's not okay. So I'm sorry. And then after that, yes, you can say, will you forgive me? And they're always so quick to forgive, which is so sweet. But I always made sure, and don't say this unless it's true. Are you working on it?
Yeah.
Are you working on making things different? Are you working on, because an apology is nothing if it keeps happening.
Yeah.
But if you're, I would always reassure Landon, buddy, I'm working really hard to try and be better about this part of my life and not yell so quickly and things like that. And so I appreciate you giving me grace here because I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And you won't be perfect either.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that you matter to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Those apologies and those repair situations, they heal your relationship and allow them to see that no matter what will happen in our relationship, we will continue forward in health and wellness.
Yeah.
And those things, we need those secure attachments. We need to know that our mom will never leave us and will never be so mad at us because we're misbehaving. That she won't come to us first.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we could talk a lot more on parenting, like we could any topic that we're passionate about.
I will say, when you model this to your kids, watch the siblings start to be able to work through their own conflict too. You know, like we've even seen our kids fight all the time, y'all. And it's,
I would say more than is
they don't fight
normal.
An exorbitant amount, but when they do fight, they fight. And Mom, Landon did this. And
go talk to him about it.
We're always like, sounds like something you need to work out with, Landon.
Yeah.
Calm your body down first before you go talk to him.
Yeah.
Take some deep breaths. You know, that way you can communicate with him.
Yeah.
And when we model these things to our kids in our conflicts, oh, it's the best form of leadership, my friends.
Yep.
It's the best form of restored living, because our kiddos, man, they will grow up to be such great, well-equipped adults
Mm-hmm.
if we take this time
Yeah.
to love them and to show them what grace is,
Yeah.
and to show them what repair looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and to show them that we are not perfect as parents.
Yeah.
There's just such power in that when we show them our shortcomings and acknowledge those shortcomings.
Yeah.
It's really the way that our kids are going to be able to grow up in this world and navigate conflict in a healthy way.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, sir?
No, I mean, there's always more, but not for today. We hope this encourages you, because we, just like you, we're first timers at this too,
Yep.
you know, so we're just figuring it out along with you. We by no means have all the answers, but we have found these things to be really helpful for us. If this sparks questions for you, or you're like, I need resources, can you guide me to someone?
Books you want me to share?
Well, why don't we put them in the show notes?
Okay.
Just because then people can just click and we can even link out to them. But we have,
or if you have a specific scenario that you want to know what book would be a good resource for you in the different, tips that we kind of gave. Because I do believe, you're kind of in one of those three areas where you're either working on your self stuff, you're working on the repair stuff, or you're working on the conflict moving through with your kids too. So
so we're happy to share those resources with you. You can you can just contact us through the website. You can DM us over on Instagram. Any of those work great to get in touch.
We'll put some of them in our story highlights too.
Yeah, we'll put some in there. Some of the tools that have been helpful for us in our parenting so far. But like we said, we want to help equip you guys in the ways that we've been equipped. If you found this helpful for you, we just ask that you share it. So whether that's putting it on Instagram and tagging us, whether that's sharing it with a friend and texting it to them, or emailing it, or sending it by carrier pigeon, whatever you want to do. Just however you want to get that to the people that, if you have a friend that is struggling in their parenting and they're having a hard time, share this with them. Maybe it will, give them just some hope that it can get better, to hopefully some resources and tools to help them in that. But we just appreciate you guys. We appreciate just the space to have conversations like this. I think is important. And so we hope this has equipped you. We love you guys. We're excited to just be back here in this space with you guys, and look forward to just hearing from some of you, and how you're wanting to grow in your parenting, and how we can just come alongside you in that journey.
100%. So with that, this has been the Restored Living Podcast.
Yep. Let's go live today restored.
Bye.
Head so heavy on the pillowcase, eyes staring out the window pane.